This story, the story I'm going to tell, starts from an intuition. To be precise, a light bulb lights up in a basement at number 24 of Via Cerva in the center of Milan. It's the 50s, and Italy has just come out of the Second World War. Everyone is looking for their own spot in a changed country, destroyed by the bombardments. It's necessary to rebuild. The buildings, the streets, but also the people and what binds them together. For Algernon Charles Holland, this is twice as true. He also took part in the war, supporting the Allied troops. Once the conflict ended, he decided to leave England to move to Milan and start from scratch. He opened a laboratory. He also thought of a name for his project, borrowed from his mother tongue English: amplify and phone. Two words which, put together and Italianized, become Amplifon. It doesn't sound bad at all. You are listening to A Sound Idea, a podcast by Cora Media in collaboration with Amplifon. Speaking of sound, here's some responsible listening advice before we start. If you're using headphones, please protect your hearing by setting the volume to 60% of maximum capacity. Officially, he was known as Algernon Charles Holland. For a certain period of time, he was Major Holland. But maybe the role he's remembered for the most is Mr. Amplifon. And probably these names already give an idea of his entrepreneurial and, in some ways, adventurous spirit. Because since he was born, his destiny has been unpredictable. Algernon Charles Holland was born on 10th of February 1919 in Horsham, West Sussex, England. In those years, Europe was witnessing the end of the First World War, and his father, Algernon Holland, was serving as captain of the Royal Air Force, where he died in service, leaving Charles fatherless before he was even born. His mother, Helen Ruth Holland, decides to move with her newborn closer to her Scottish relatives, who live in Buenos Aires, Argentina. At just 2 years old, little Charles sets out on his first journey to the other side of the globe. Buenos Aires becomes his home, and he grows up speaking English and Spanish. He studies at the English College of the capital and graduates in electronic engineering, a subject that will be very useful to him. But when Charles is only 20 years old, the Second World War begins. Like many young men of his age, Charles also leaves for the front. He serves in the Special Operations Executive of the British Army, a group chosen to carry out espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance operations behind enemy lines. After a while, he joins the Devil's Brigade, which is later immortalized by the eponymous movie of 1968. The original plan for the Devil's Brigade foresees the invasion of the German positions in Norway, in particular, their hydroelectric power stations and other strategic locations. However, the mission is aborted during their training cycle. Charles and the rest of the brigade receive communication of a new destination, Italy. In 1944, Charles Holland is parachuted on the Apennines south of Parma. He is a liaison officer with the Italian resistance. At the end of the conflict, he becomes responsible for the telecommunications of the Allied army, in Lombardy first and then throughout Italy. With the end of the war, Major Holland takes his leave, but his Italian chapter is not over yet. On the contrary, it has just begun. In 1948, Charles goes back to Italy without a plan in mind. After a while, he settles in Milan and marries Anna Maria Formigini. Here he begins to understand that there is the possibility to use his degree in electronic engineering. He realizes that in Italy, there is an enormous lack of care for hearing problems. Not because it is less common in Italy, rather because this condition is always seen as something that must simply be accepted. Hearing aids existed as early as the 1600s and had the shape of small brass horns. They were called acoustic cornets. The acoustic cornet was placed at the entrance of the auditory canal and helped to better catch the sound waves. A simple instrument, effective enough but uncomfortable. With the invention of the telephone in the second half of the 1800s, hearing devices are making great strides. The first batteries and carbon microphones are used, helping significantly with the perception of sounds. Still, they remain cumbersome devices. The first portable electronic acoustic instrument weighed about 3 kilograms. And just when Charles Holland moves to Italy, the technology for these instruments is developing, thanks to the invention of the transistor that allows acoustic instruments to be smaller, compact, and discreet, but above all, more efficient. Innovation over time has made great strides in today's miniaturized and rechargeable, connected, and hyper-technological devices. There is more. In the aftermath of the war, the awareness of hearing problems started to grow. Many veterans had suffered hearing damage due to the detonation of bombs during the war. Holland, therefore, has an intuition. The improvement in technology and the increasing demand are paving the way for the hearing aid market. A market that could reach dimensions of the one already consolidated in Northern Europe and the United States. Today we would call it a startup, but this is how a new adventure starts for Charles Holland, that same adventure he will dedicate the rest of his life, Amplifon. Now, the challenges that Charles Holland and his newborn company have to face are not just entrepreneurial and technological. Acknowledging a hearing-related problem is a journey. Even today, in Europe, 56% of people with hearing problems have never had a hearing test. And this is not due solely to economic or opportunity aspects. Indeed, hearing problems have always been attached with social prejudices. Admitting to hearing loss has been associated with stigma and a sign of cognitive decline. Incomprehension and misunderstandings that can generate from hearing problems have always linked not hearing with not understanding. We have a striking example in our tradition of comedy and folk sayings. If the hearing defect is an invisible problem, then the solution must be invisible too. Holland is on a mission to help Italians take care of their hearing. For this reason, he immediately finds a way to create a bridge between Amplifon and its potential users. He gets in touch with doctors to raise awareness about the existence and functionality of new acoustic supports. But above all, he creates a network of sellers. This network is not only made up of business people, but also of professionals with technical skills. Here too, Holland wants to make a bet. He selects young people without special qualifications, but with great determination and initiative. He trains them on technical aspects and starts building a new identity and a business purpose. Thanks to the contribution of Holland, in Italy the figure of the hearing aid technician was born. Today, in Italy and in several other countries, one can become a hearing care professional after a 3-year degree university course. There is one last aspect which will enable Amplifon to consolidate its entrepreneurial destiny. Working with technology, it was clear from the outset that scientific research and keeping up with the times had to be a priority. This process had to involve the technicians and the doctors in the field. So to spread knowledge about the evolution of hearing aids and diagnostic equipment, Charles Holland established the Center for Research and Studies in 1971. Today, CRS Amplifon still holds conferences and training events which support collaboration between experts recognized worldwide. In less than 50 years, Amplifon succeeded in strengthening its network in the Italian territory. Holland also succeeded in building a strong supplier network, which enables it to offer the best available devices on the market. It is the best time to embark on a new adventure, expanding the company abroad. Charles Holland's global market orientation, perhaps driven by his personal history, remains in the DNA of the company even after him, thanks to his daughter Susan Holland, who became vice president in 1993 and president in 2011. On one side, the creation of the new store network in Europe, starting with Spain and France, was the natural evolution of the Amplifon project. On the other, conquering the American market required a good strategy. In 1999, the acquisition of the local leader, Miracle Ear, was completed. A nice boost to strengthen the presence in the United States. In the early years of 2000, Amplifon also reaches Germany and Canada. In 2001, the group was listed on the Milan Stock Exchange, an ascent that since 2015 with CEO Enrico Vita allows the company to structure itself and pursue new growth goals, including through new acquisitions in Spain, Australia, the United States, and China. Today, the experiment of Charles Holland has become a reality made of more than 10,000 stores worldwide, with almost $2.5 billion in annual revenues and over 20,000 people of 100 different nationalities and more than 70% women, always at the forefront of research for the best technologies. But the core activity remains the service provided to people, taking the time to accompany those who have hearing loss rediscover the joys of everyday sounds. In short, improving people's lives. The gaze is always directed towards the future. In 2020, with the guidance of Susan Holland, Amplifon establishes Fondazione Amplifon in support of those who are at risk of marginalization, in particular the elderly. Its mission is to fight the stigma and allow people to reach their full potential in life. Alongside traditional initiatives, Fondazione Amplifon has undertaken a program on kindness, the best form of actions and relationships and instruments of peace. Kindness, therefore, becomes a founding pillar of the company's values, as are ethics, experience, innovation, service, and human warmth, just as Algernon Charles Holland wanted in his laboratory back in 1950. A Sound Idea is a podcast by Cora Media in collaboration with Amplifon, written by Francesca Abruzzese and told by Caterina Sforza. Editorial care, Sara Poma. The sound and music are supervised by Luca Micheli. Post-production and editing by Aurora Ricci. The graphic design is by Rebecca Grassi. The project manager is Anna Nenna. The producers are Alex Peverengo and Luca Condulmari. The coordination of post-production is by Matteo Scelsa. The sound engineer is Luca Possi.